Hello my dear WebRTC developers. I decided to continue my tutorial, and in this video I will show you how to deploy easily your application to EC2 instances in AWS. Why I chose AWS? Because it is very easy to start with, and it is free if you're not going to use a lot of resources and if you just create your account. For the first year since you created your account, you get 750 hours, if I remember correct, of EC2 servers running, and you also get a lot of space in S3 buckets, so you can use it for your educational or testing purposes, and it is more than enough. We will also use Docker to run our application easily, and we will do everything manually. I will not cover CI/CD in this video because I just want to show you, and I want you to know the steps that we actually need to do for deploy. So after you did it manually, you already can write a CI/CD pipeline for it. So if you don't have AWS account yet, just go and create it now, and let's start. So here we are in our application, and as you see, we are pointing our front end to localhost. And what we're gonna do today is we're gonna deploy our servers, our services to a remote server in AWS, and we need a Docker for it to make it easier. So if you don't yet have a Docker installed, you should go to Dockerizing website, and here you can download Docker for your machine, Apple or Windows or Linux, whatever. If you're running Windows, if you're using Windows, I strongly advise you to install WSL. It is kind of a Linux inside Windows. Install it, and it will be much easier to configure your environment for software development, because we all know how painful it is to develop anything under Windows. So now when you have your Docker installed, what we need to do is just to go to our services, to our peer.js. For example, let's start with this one, and here we will create a Docker file. So Dockerfile, it is instructions for Docker to tell it which image we want to run and which steps we want to perform to build, deploy, and start our application. So this will be the simple and straightforward one, and the first line is usually we say Docker which image to use. The command is from. So if you go to Docker website, Docker images, so there is this hub docker.com where you can look for the images. So here we are, this is my images, and if you want to search for something, you can search for Node, for example. This is the official image for Node.js, and there are a bunch of different ones. So we just pick the one that our application is running on. For example, we can use Node 18 or 20 or whatever. I think I'd use this one. So let's try. So we told the Docker which Node.js we want to use. Then we have to tell which working directory we are expecting it to use. So it will be workdir command, and let's just do it peer.js. What is this workdir? This is just kind of a good practice to tell Docker to run stuff in certain directory in your server. So when you run your Docker, it will just create this folder and will work there. We want to tell Docker to copy our package.json and yarn log. We need them to be able to install our dependencies. So now when we copied our package.json and yarn log, we can tell Docker to install our dependencies. Just run the same command as we do in our just local machine, but with this flag frozen log file. It means that during the installation, Yarn will check if the version of the dependency is the same as in log file, and if it's not, then it will tell you that you have to update your log file manually. Now we just want to copy all the files of our project. This is very funny command, so it's just like copy this folder to this folder. This is it. The next step is to build our application, so we can again use run, and this will be yarn build. It will just go and run the build command from your package.json, and now when you build your application, you can finally run it. So this will be command node and just current directory. Last step you have to perform is expose the port of your application. If you remember, we're running this one on port 8080, so we just expose this port. Let's create a Docker ignore file. Starts with dot, and we will add the node modules and npm debug log. This is like the very basic setup for node application. And now we can try to go to our peer.js, and we can try to run our application. First we need to build it actually. Docker build -t, and then if you create an account on Docker website, you'll get a username. So you can create a tag for your image that you're building. For example, my username is nimff, and then slash, then name of your service, and then its version. I already have version 002, so this one will be 003. If you are inside of directory that you're gonna build, then just add the dot as an argument. So you see our Docker image is building, meaning that yarn is not found. I actually misused the syntax. Yeah, it should be. I don't do this very often, so it should be like Docker node 18 alpine. And let's try again. The last step that we are going to do locally is to push our image into the Docker Hub. So first you have to do Docker login, and it will ask your credentials for Docker Hub, and then you can do Docker push and just copy this, your username and your service tag, and it's gonna push your image to the Docker Hub. And then when you will create your AWS EC2 instance, you can just log into this instance and pull your image and run it there. So it's ready, and let's move on to the second part of our manual deploy. Let's go to AWS and let's launch our EC2 instance. We are in AWS console, and here we are in EC2 panel. So how do you get there? You can click on services and select EC2, or just type it in the search and it will pop up. So here on the main landing page of EC2 experience, you can click launch instance. You need to give it a name. Let's call it WebRTC peer Node.js. And here we can choose an image on which we are gonna run our application. So we are going to choose this Amazon Linux AMI, and this is a optimized one for it, eligible for a free tier, so it has everything what we need. And here we can create key pair. This is needed if you're gonna log in via SSH from your computer to your EC2 instance. If you're gonna just use AWS console to access it, then you don't need that, but let's create it just in case. And we downloaded it. You need to put it in a safe place because this is very important for the security of your application. Here are some network settings. We can just allow everything. Here we will leave default stuff. I don't want to change anything in advanced details. We don't really care. So number of instances, 1, and let's launch it. So our instance is launched. We can open it and you see it's running, and now we can connect to the instance. So there are a few ways to connect. We can do it just from here or from SSH client. This is what you need to this is a command that you need to run on your local computer, and you need to pass your certificate here with a -i flag. So let's connect just from here. Next thing we're gonna do here is to install Docker, because I think we do not have Docker on this machine. Yeah, we do not have it, so we need to install it. We can install Docker with the following command. We need sudo, because this user that you are logged in with in EC2 instance, it is not a root user, so you have to use sudo for all these operations. So sudo yum install docker, and we have to answer yes, and it will install all the stuff. So now with this command I just copy pasted it, but I will leave all these commands below the video in the description. So with this command we can tell Docker not to ask for sudo when we are running Docker commands. And we also need this one. Okay. ID command not found. We need to install it probably. Of course it needs super user. Yes, with sudo it worked. And now we want to make Docker run every time when our instance is restarted. So we do it with the following command. And then we now just run it. Now if we check the version, we see that Docker is installed and everything is fine. Now we need to pull our image that we already uploaded in Docker Hub. So we can do it with the command docker pull, and then in your image and version. And now the only thing that is left is to run our Docker containers. So it is docker run, then some flags, and we need to map the ports. So if you want to access our service on the port 80, we need to map it to the actual port of the Docker. And you remember in Dockerfile we exposed for PeerJS. Actually this is wrong. For PeerJS it should be 9001, because if you look in the code, it is running on the port 9001. So let's do it again. Let's create another version. Oops, we need to build it first, and we need to push it. Now here in the instance, we did not run it yet, so we don't have to stop it. We only need to pull the new one. Not git pull, of course, the docker pull. And now we can run it. Docker run /d/p port 80 mapping to the exposed port, and let's give it a name, peer.js, and we have to tell what exactly we're running. We're running this image, and if we do docker ps, you can see that our container is running on the port 80. Now if we go just to terminal and do curl and the IP address of this instance, let's see if it's working. Oh yeah, you see our peer.js server respond with this JSON, and if we just update our host for peer.js in our client application, then we will be able to connect to this port, to this service in AWS cloud. And another thing that we need to do, in case if we restart our instance, we want our container to run automatically, and we can do it just to add a command. We can do it the following way: sudo v-etc local. So if we edit this file, to edit in V, you can just hit I. So we just want to let me just copy. We just want to run this command every time when we restart our instance. And another command that we need to run before this one is removing the container. So every time we restart our service, our instance, we will run the command to remove the old container and to start the new one. Now hit escape and then colon and W and Q means save and quit the editor. And that's it, we're done. Our peer.js server now up and running in AWS EC2 instance, and we can connect to it from anywhere. Now we can do the same for our WebSocket service, just exactly the same, with the only difference that there we will expose different ports. We're running it on the port 8080, so we're gonna expose the port. I will not do all these steps again for our WebSocket server. You can do it yourself, just following the example with peer.js server. And after you're done with this, I can show you how to run the client on the S3 hosting, static hosting. And what we can do is to go to our client and copy this API and go to our client and replace it here. And also in our room context, we can replace our local host with this one. And we can go to client and run yarn start. and we see our application. And if we go to network and refresh it, you can see that we're doing some requests here. If we try to open multiple windows, it doesn't seem working to me. Of course, because port is 80. Yeah, so let's try again. Nope. What if we open another browser? Okay, we connected to our room. And what I'm gonna do now is to deploy our front-end, and this is gonna be even easier. So we are going to the client and we run yarn build. And then we are going to the S3 bucket. And here we are hitting create bucket, and I'll zoom a little bit again. So here it's gonna be WebRTC tutorial. I think it should be disabled. Here we should untick this block all public access because we're going to access it from internet. Versioning we don't need. So this is, we can also ignore, and let's hit create. And we created our WebRTC tutorial. And now we can go to properties, and here we have at the very bottom this static website hosting. We enable it, and here we just we're just pasting index HTML for both of them. And what else? Now I think we can try to upload our files. We build it here and it is in the build. So let's reveal it in Finder. That's our build package, and let's do it again. Let's upload. Amazing. Upload succeeded. Now we can go to the properties and see the link for our website, and if we click it, we see this 403 forbidden error, and I know how to fix it. We just need to go to another bucket that I was setting up earlier today, and here in permissions, was it? Yeah, so we need to copy this bucket policy, and we go back, we go to our tutorial, permissions, bucket policy, we're gonna edit it, and here we just need to change our bucket name to tutorial, and I think that's it. Let's save, let's refresh, and voila, it is working. Let's try to connect, and our application is working. Oops. And if we go in the network, refresh it, there is something going on here as well, but we do not see this. We do not see our camera because you see this error in the console. I can zoom it a little bit. So it cannot read get user media because we are on HTTP protocol, and our modern browsers are very keen to secure us from all the evil hackers, so they do not let us stream our camera output to websites that are not in HTTPS protocol. So to continue testing our tutorial, our application, we need to to add a domain name for our static website, and we need to issue an SSL certificate and to add it to this domain. And this is what I'll show you in the next video, so stay tuned. Don't forget to like and subscribe on my channel. Thank you very much for watching this video. Hopefully it was useful for you. See you in the next episodes.